His name was Old Jasper, the bushcrafter of the frontier. Now, Jasper wasn't just any fella out in the wild. He was a white-bearded, wild-eyed soul who'd lived longer in the woods than most had lived in this world. And while folks were settling towns and riding trains, Jasper was living his life in a way that few dared to try. You see, Jasper was a bushcrafter, a man who could make a shelter from the earth, find food in the trees, and water where there seemed to be none. Let me tell you about the adventures that made him a hero of his own kind. Now, the first time I met Jasper, he was living in a shelter that floated right over the water. I mean it was like something you'd read in a storybook. Jasper had found this old tree leaning out over the creek, and he'd taken branches, thick as your arm, and lashed them together until he had himself a place to sleep. And as the water ran below, he'd say it kept him cool in the summer, and the sound of that creek made him sleep like a babe. Jasper's skills didn't stop there, though. He was a builder in ways most folks wouldn't believe. One winter, that snow came down faster than I've ever seen, thick and cold. So Jasper? Well, he dug himself a secret cave right into the hillside. But that wasn't all. He found himself a hollow under the roots of a fallen spruce and packed it with dry brush and leaves, making it as cozy as a squirrel's nest. There, he'd weather the fiercest storms, tucked away warm and safe. And then there was that treehouse of his, a nest he built up high, weaving branches together like a bird. Said it gave him a view of the world, like he could see all that happened in his woods. And there, high above the ground, Jasper would listen to the sounds of nature, the birds, the wind, and he learned to feel the land beneath him, like it was his own heartbeat. Now, Jasper was more than a builder, he was a survivor. He had skills that seemed like magic to folks who'd only ever known life in town. He could light a fire with just a spark, even in the middle of a rainstorm. You'd see him, blowing gently, coaxing that flame to life. And he'd make tools out of whatever he could find, carving rock and bone to create knives sharp enough to skin a rabbit, and weaving baskets from tree bark. He was a forager. He knew every berry, every root, and every green leaf that could be eaten or used for medicine. Now, it wasn't all fruit and veggies, mind you. Jasper was a hunter and a trapper, and he set snares and traps so clever even the wiliest critter couldn't escape 'em. Water was another thing he had mastered. He'd track it like he was a bloodhound, finned in streams hidden in dry ground, knowing where to dig or filter through rock and sand. To Jasper, water wasn't just survival, it was sacred. Did he ever get lost, you ask? Not Jasper. No, he read the land like it was his own story. Knew the stars above and the moss on the trees, and could tell the time of day just by the way the shadows moved. Once, they say he traveled 50 miles through a storm without a map, guided only by the stars, the way the wind felt, and a deep knowing he carried in his bones. But folks, not all his days in the wild were peaceful. One time, a gang of outlaws figured they'd rob him, thinking Jasper was just some old man easy to outsmart. They chased him into his woods, thinking they'd catch him. But Jasper led them on a wild goose chase, disappearing like smoke, doubling back, leaving false trails. By the time they caught on, they were lost in those woods, empty-handed and shivering. And Jasper? He watched them from the shadows, a quiet smirk on his face. But here's the thing, Jasper wasn't a cruel man. One of those outlaws got himself caught in a trap Jasper set for game, and did Jasper leave him there? No, sir. He patched him up, fed him, and sent him off with a warning never to step foot in those woods again. They say that man left his life of crime that day, reckonin' he'd seen the true strength of a man who lives by his own means. And it wasn't just outlaws who tested him. One dry summer, a fire spread through Jasper's woods, fast and fierce. Now, most folks would have run for it, but not Jasper. He fought that blaze alone, diggin' fire breaks, usin' every skill he'd learned. He wrestled with that fire for hours, and when he was done, he stood guard over those woods, watchin' till he knew every spark was snuffed out. When the rain came, Jasper said he felt like he'd been blessed, and he'd sit by the ash, knowin' he'd fought nature and won, but only 'cause he respected it. You see, Jasper wasn't just a hero to us folk, he was a guardian of the land. A protector of nature and of people, though he never wore a badge or carried a gun. He saved others by teaching us to live in harmony with the earth, to respect its ways, to survive with honor. And when he wasn't around, we'd still feel him there, like the spirit of the forest itself, watching over us. And that, folks, is the legend of old Jasper, the bushcrafter of the frontier. A man who taught us that sometimes the quietest folks are the bravest. That survival ain't just about strength, but about patience, knowing the land, and finding peace in the wild. Remember, wherever you wander, there's a bit of old Jasper in all of us if we take the time to listen to the land, learn from it, and treat it with the same respect he did.